Assalamualaikum. My name is Muhammad Izrimi Wahid, and I'm going to talk about the introduction of the comparison between the three ISO that we have been compared between ISO 14001, 45001 and 9001. And as for the background of ISO 40001, it's quite simple. It is to achieve a balance between the environment, society and the economy. And for the 45001, the background is each organization is responsible in terms of occupational health, which is OS and H. And for ISO 9001, the standard is based on the quality management. And we move on to plan, do, check, act cycle. Actually, there is no difference between these three diagrams, and basically it has the same diagram for each ISO. So basically there is no difference between the three of it. And we move on to the aim and purpose of each ISO. And for the ISO 14001, it is to provide an organization with a framework to protect the environment and respond to changing in environmental condition. And for the ISO 45001, the purpose of an OH&S management system is to provide a framework for managing OH and risk and opportunity. And for the ISO 9001, the standard is to promote the useful approach when developing, implementing and improving the effectiveness of quality management system. So last but not least, we move on to the scope, which is the main title of the ISO. And for the ISO 40001, the international standard is applicable to any organization regardless of its size, type, nature, and applies to the environmental aspect of its activity, product, and services. And for the ISO 45001, this document helps an organization to achieve the intended outcome of the OH and S management system. And lastly, for the ISO 9001, this scope is need to demonstrate its ability to consistently provide the product and service that meet the customer and applicable statutory and regulatory requirement. That's all for me. Thank you.
Hello everybody, my name is Shazina Haida and I will be continuing with class 3, the terms and definition. Firstly, I will talk about ISO 45001, which is correction, action to eliminate a detected nonconformity. When a problem occurs, you need to keep several aspects in mind. Firstly, determine the magnitude of the problem. Secondly, determine how to prevent it from getting bigger. Then, how to address current situation. Next, we have corrective action, the action to eliminate the cause of a detected nonconformity. Now, determine if the importance of the situation requires further action, like, was it a big deal? What's the chance it will happen again? And lastly, estimate of any future threats. And next, we have the preventive action, the action to eliminate the cause of a potential nonconformity. First, you need to assess the risk and mitigate it based on severity. In ISO management systems, the concept of preventive action is expressed through a risk-based approach, where risks are determined and actions to address opportunities and risks are taken. Next, I will talk about ISO 9001. There are two main reasons why it benefits businesses to be familiar with ISO 9001 terminology. First, the comprehension. Learning ISO 9001 terminology is the first step towards being able to understand ISO 9001 requirements and what your organization needs to meet them, and eventually become certified. And secondly, we have implementation. When implementing new quality management system QMS to meet ISO 9001 requirements, you will be better equipped to educate employees throughout the company. In addition, you will be able to apply your new ISO 9001 vocabulary in drafting important ISO 9001 documents, often required from businesses for certification. And lastly, we have ISO 14001. Now, I will explain in details about ISO 14001. Firstly, we have auditor, a person with the competence to conduct an audit. Secondly, we have continual improvement. Third, we have the corrective action, the action to eliminate the cause of a detected non-conformity. Fourth, we have document, information. Fifth, we have environment, the surroundings in which an organization operates. Six, we have the environmental aspect. Seven, we have the environmental impact, any change to the environment. Eight, we have the environmental management system, EMS, the part of organization's management system used to develop and implement its environmental policy and manage its environmental aspect. Ninth, we have environmental objective. And 10, we have environmental performance, measurable results. 11, we have environmental policy, the overall intentions and direction. 12, we have the environmental target, detailed performance requirement. 13, we have the interested party, person or group concerned. 14, we have the internal audit. And number 15, we have non-conformity, non-fulfillment of a requirement. 16, we have the organization, the company. And 17, we have the preventive action. 18, we have the prevention of pollution. 19, we have the procedure, specific way to carry out an activity or a process. And lastly, we have the record, document stating results. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Adibah Hazwani binti Azhari, and I will talk about the comparison of ISO 14001, 45001 and 9001 on the class 4 and class 5. Let's start with the class 4, which is context of the organization. The subclass 4.1 is understanding the organization and its context. ISO 40001, 45001 and 9001 shall determine the external and internal issue to achieve their intended outcomes for each management system. Then, subclass 4.2 is understanding the needs and expectations for interested parties. These three standards should fulfill the requirement needed for their interested parties that are relevant to each management system, where for ISO 40001, the requirement relevant to the EMS, ISO 45001, the requirement to the workers that are relevant to the OH&S, and ISO 9001 provide products and services that are relevant to the QMS. Next, subclass 4.3 determining the scope of the EMS, OH&S and QMS, where each standard need to determine the boundaries of their management system. And lastly, the subclass 4.4, which is environmental management system, OH&S management system, and the quality management system, where each standard should establish, maintain and continually improve their management system while fulfill all the requirements needed. Now, let's move to the next class, which is class 5, leadership. Subclass 5.1 is leadership and commitment, where for ISO 14001 need to taking accountability for the effectiveness of EMS and ensuring the environmental policy and environmental objectives are established. Meanwhile, for ISO 45001 need to taking overall responsibility for prevention of work-related injury and ill health, as well as the provision of safe and healthy workplace and activities. However, for ISO 9001, it has subclass unit which is general, where it have to ensuring, directing and supporting person to contribute to the effectiveness of the QMS. It also include customer focus, where it focus on the enhancing customer satisfaction is maintained. Now, for the subclass 5.2 is environmental policy, OH&S policy, and the quality policy, where environmental policy focus on the nature, scale, and environmental impacts of its activities, products, and services. For OH&S policy, it focuses on their commitment to provide safe and healthy working environment for the prevention of work-related injury. In addition, for ISO 9001 policy, which is establishing the quality policy, need to provide a framework for setting quality objective. Next, let's move to the subclass 4.3, which is organizational roles, responsibility, and authorities. These three standards should ensuring each management system conform to the requirements of the international standard. They also should reporting on the performance of each management system to the top management. Last but not least, subclause 4.4 that include only in the ISO 45001, which is consultation and participation of workers. An organization should provide mechanism, time, training, and resource necessary for consultation and participation. That's all from me. Thank you for your attention.
Next is clause 6, which is planning. Okay, first clause is action to address risk and opportunity. Okay, for ISO 14001, the organization shall establish, implement, and maintain process need to meet the requirement in general, environmental aspect, compliance obligation, and planning action. For ISO 45001, organization shall consider issues of external and internal, the require of interest party, and the scope of OSHA management. For ISO 19001, the organization shall consider the issues of external and internal of EMS and determine the risk of opportunity that need to give assurance the quality management system achieve. Okay, for ISO 14001 is for environmental aspect, compliance obligation, planning action. For ISO 45001 and is hazard identification, determine of legal requirement, and planning action. For ISO 19001 is the quality management system that organization shall plan the action to address these risks and opportunity, and how to integrate the implementing this action into the quality management system process. Okay, next is objective and planning to achieve them. Okay, for ISO 14001 is about environmental objective. For ISO 45001 is about OSHA objective, and ISO 19001 about quality objective. Okay, so second is for ISO 14001 is to plan the action to achieve environmental objective. For ISO 45001, planning action to achieve OSHA objective, and ISO 19001 to planning action to achieve the quality management system objective. So, and the last clause is 6.3 is about planning of changes, which is ISO 19001. When the organization determine the need for change to quality management system, the change should be carried out in a planned manner. The organization should consider the purpose of change and their potential consequences, the integrity of quality management system, availability of resources, and allocation or reallocation of responsibilities and authorities.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Hashim bin Aman from AS229 to A. I will talk about the clause 7 of ISO 14001, ISO 9001, and ISO 45001. Okay, first is ISO 14001 for the resources, the continual improvement of the environmental management system. And for the next topic, competence, it is to determine the ability to fulfill its compliance. 7.3, awareness, it using the environmental policy. And 7.4, the topic is communication. The subtopic is general, internal communication, and external communication. 7.5, the last topic in the class 7 is documented information. It has the general creating and updating and the control of documented information. Okay, that's all for ISO 14001. And next is ISO 9001. 7.1 is same as the ISO 40001 resources. 7.2 is competent. It is to determine the effectiveness of the quality management system. For the awareness, it using the quality policy. The communication, it has the general internal communication and the external communication. 7.5 documented information. It has general creating and updating control of documented information. For ISO 45001, the resources is continuous improvement of the OHS management system. The competent is the worker that affect its OHS performance. The awareness is the OHS policy. For 7.4 communication, it is general internal communication and external communication. 7.5 documented information. The first subtopic is general, the second creating and updating, and the last is the control of documented information. Okay, that's all for ISO for class 7. And the next class is class 8. For the ISO 14001, 8.0 is the operation. 8.1 operational planning and control. And the next topic is emergency preparedness and responses. For ISO 9001, operation and operational planning and control for product and service. And 8.2 requirement for product and service. But for ISO 45001, it has the different operational planning and control for maintaining the documented information. Yes, the eliminating hazard and reduce OHS risk. And the last is management of change new product, service and present. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you.
For my part, there are class 9 and class 10. In class 9, there are 3 parts, which are monitoring, measurement and analysis evaluation, internal audit and management view. For monitoring, measurement, analysis and evaluation, in 9001, the organization shall determine what needs to be monitored and measured, what methods for monitoring, measurement, analysis and evaluation needed to ensure valid results, when the monitoring and measurement shall be performed, when the result from monitoring measurement shall be analyzed and evaluated. In 14001, the organization shall determine what needs to be monitored and measured, the methods for monitoring, measurement, analysis and evaluation as applicable to ensure valid results, the criteria against which the organization will evaluate its environmental performance and appropriate indicators, when the monitoring and measuring shall be performed, when the result from monitoring and measurement shall be analyzed and evaluated. For 45001, the organization shall determine what needs to be monitored, measuring, including the extent to which legal requirements and other requirements are fulfilled, its activities and operations related to identified hazards, risks and opportunities, progress towards achievement of the organization OH&S objectives, effectiveness, operational and other controls. Second, the methods for monitoring,
measurement, analysis, and performance evaluation as applicable to ensure valid results. 3. The criteria against which the organization will evaluate its OH&S performance. When the monitoring and measuring shall be performed, when the result from monitoring measurement shall be analyzed, evaluated, and communicated. For internal audit, 9.2, generally 9001, the organization shall conduct internal audit at planned interval to provide information on whether the quality management system conforms to the organization's own requirement for its quality management system. The requirement of this international standard is effectively implement and maintain. For 14001, the organization shall conduct internal audit at planned interval to provide information on whether the environmental management system. It seems like 19001, the organization owns requirement for its environmental system. The requirements of this international standard is effectively maintained. For 45001, the organization shall conduct internal audit and planned interval to provide information on whether the OH&S management first conform to the organization on own requirements for its OH&S system, including the OH&S policy and OH&S objectives. The requirements of this document is effectively implemented and maintained. Next, 9.3, management view. In 19001, top management shall review the organization quality management system at planned interval to ensure its continuing suitability, adequacy, effectiveness, and alignment with the strategic direction of the organization. 14001, top management shall review the organization environmental management system at planned interval to ensure its continuing suitability, adequacy, and effectiveness. 45001, top management shall review the organization OH&S management system at planned interval to ensure continuing suitability, adequacy, effectiveness. For class 10, generally 9001, the organization shall determine and select opportunities, improvement, and implement any necessary action to meet customer requirement and enhance customer satisfaction. This shall include improving products and service to meet requirement as well to address future needs and expectations. Second, correcting, preventing, or reducing undesired effects. Third, improving the performance and effectiveness of the quality management system. For 14001, the organization shall determine opportunity for improvement, implement necessary action to achieve the intended outcome of its management system. For 45001, the organization shall determine opportunities for improvement and implement necessary action to achieve intended outcomes of its OH&S management system. Thank you. That's all from my part.